I'm here with Shawn Farash. He's an absolute icon. He's been reposted by President Trump as well as the entire Trump family. He is the #1 Trump impersonator, and I want to know how he got his start.
First, as long as he's icon, right? That's nice. Very nice. Thank you. It's fun. It's fun to be here. Congrats on the show. This is awesome, right? I have no idea why there's a bag of McDonald's next to me. I'm sure we'll find out. That's pretty cool. And the question was what? How I got my start? How this whole thing happened? I mean, I was totally unintentional, right? But on Long Island doing what we were doing, right? Local activism, local politics, and COVID, protesting all the nonsense that Andrew Cuomo put us through, the bizarre rules. Every time that we have this conversation, I talk to somebody about the bizarre rules. They think that some of it's made up. All of it's not. All of it's the truth. 11 o'clock curfews. Then one day it was a midnight curfew, and nobody thought to go, what changed? Like, what is the virus not out at that hour anymore? Did you make a deal with it? Like, what happened here? There were a lot of people that had enough. The mask mandates. If you're sitting in a bar stool, you could take your mask off. If you stand up next to the bar stool and you're in the exact same place, you had to put the mask on. These are all things that happen. You couldn't go to a bar and order alcohol without ordering food. Buffalo wings did not count. So apparently, in the name of science, chicken wasn't food. And I was just like, I thought that, well, yeah, that makes sense. We wouldn't want to kill grandma. I said, grandma's at the bar? I mean, what are we doing? So nobody wanted to, well, actually, that's not true. A lot of people did want to ask. Nobody had the catalyst to start asking and to start pushing back. And that's what we did on Long Island. So that caught the attention of some folks in the city. And somebody she's still a councilwoman on the New York City Council. Her name's Vicky Palladino. She's awesome. District 19. She was like, hey, I'm running for city council. I need help getting on the ballot. I said, I'll put the word out. I'll come out. We'll collect signatures for you. We're knocking on doors. A friend of mine, who was walking with me, knocking on doors, getting signatures, goes, you got that Trump thing on TikTok. I said to him, we're not going to do that because there's China. We don't do China. We would never do that. I get along well with China, but he goes, no, you got to do that. So I went on and started making kind of this parody, just nonsense that would pop into my head. I was working full time in a paint store, so my mind had a lot of time to wander, and it was also a lot of paint fumes. So you get a little creative.
Well, listen, regardless of the paint fumes, I'm saying you've made tremendous content, and I'm going to explain why this McDonald's is.
Oh, I'm excited to hear this.
So I pretty much discovered you, I believe, through your McDonald's drive-through Trump impersonation, and that is my favorite. In fact, my grandfather used to take my dog through the drive-through at McDonald's, and so, we have jokes in the family, cheeseburgers in there.
All right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to peel the buns off. And I do keto, right? So everyone's going to yell at me, but I'll eat it. I got no problem. Look at that beautiful bun. Look at this. Now, that's the best part about it anyway, is the meat. It's gonna pickles are good too. We can eat pickles. But we'll take the buns off. When I was going through this drive-through, so I didn't care about a diet. But now I care about a diet. Now
You got a maha. You got a maha,
Oh yeah, all about it. Bobby Kennedy would love my pork chops every.
Do you want the other one?
Single night.
Do you want the other one?
Let me throw it to you.
Here. And so I have a snack up for myself. I wasn't going to eat it yet, but maybe, I don't know. I might let myself be a little hangry for a little while.
I'm going in.
Around set. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm going in. Look at this cheeseburger. We got the onions. We got the burger.
The Maha crowd's going to hate us.
Peeling off the buns, being responsible. Bobby Kennedy will not come get me in my sleep tonight, which is good. I don't need him coming in. Can't understand what he's saying. Nice guy, though. Doing a great job, actually.
They really are. Honestly, I'm most happy about them getting rid of the synthetic dyes because people just don't realize all the chemicals that are really going into our foods.
I'm also excited about being honest about sugar. There was this idea for a long time that if your food had fats in it or was high in fat or had a lot of calories, that was somehow a bad thing, and it's actually not. You need calories to exist, to function. And fat provides you more energy than sugar does. I first started on the on this whole keto thing years ago, helping my friend lose some weight, just like as moral support. And then I realized that I get less headaches when I'm on a sustained run. And so I was like, I'm going to keep eating like this as long as I can. And so for a couple of years, a little bit, some bad choices and a busy schedule. And I say bad choices, it sounds like a bad, but it wasn't bad choices. It was just, you know, too much running around, not enough time to prep and cook. And, if I'm going to go to McDonald's a lot, I'm not always going to peel the buns off. Right. So, but today, cause we'll be all right. But it's fun to see the validation, the vindication coming from the FDA now, where they're saying dietary fats are okay. That's not, permission or license to go guzzle a gallon of butter. But, for example, sometimes for lunch, I'll just grab like turkey, lunch meat, just dip it in mayo. No bread, just dip the turkey. The people, that's gross. I said, quiet. It's good. It's tasty. And I'm in ketosis all the time. So we're good. We're all good.
So how would you say that being in keto or on keto changed your life?
Well, like I said, it helps with the headaches. I used to get like between like 4 and 6 a week migraines, not just like, you're running the mill, my head hurts, let me pop an ibuprofen and everything will be okay. It was these, if you see like a vice on a table, you tighten it and it's just like, that's what it is. And it throws everything out of whack. When my head starts getting hot, like you could touch my head, it'll feel like you have a fever, like I've got a fever.
Oh, wow.
But I don't. It's just that there's all this blood up here, and then my toes get cold, and my hands get cold, and my eyes, and sometimes it's nauseous. And it's just brutal. So I said, we're not going to do this Botox thing. So we all go get Botox. We're not going to do this, it's all sorts of these high-powered medications. So I'm going to fix the migraine. I'm going to cause another problem. Why not just, I'll deal with them. I'll try and mitigate them as best as possible, and I'll do it in a way that I don't have to essentially rely on a chemical for the rest of my life, so I don't have a headache. So that's how it is improved. Things are difficult sometimes on there, right? Because I miss pasta. I grew up in an Italian family. I miss pizza. But I mean, I have it. It's not like I don't ever eat it.
I'm Italian also, so I 100%
But
get it.
yeah, but I do love me some pork chops, some steak. We don't buy steak often, beef, because you have to sacrifice like a limb. It's so expensive. But pork ain't. And everyone's like, pork's gross. And I'm like, I'm happy you feel that way.
Oh, so wait, you're from New York, right?
Yeah.
So do you know the whole debate over pork roll and Taylor ham?
Yeah, that's the New York versus New Jersey thing, right?
Do you have a view on this?
That's pork roll.
Oh man, I'm a Taylor ham girl.
Yeah,
it's okay.
but it's literally a pork roll. It's fine, whatever.
North South Jersey has a whole debate about this. So South Jersey is full on. Well, it's Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
but it is their full on pork roll.
Well, it's how in the South in Tennessee they call shopping carts buggies, which I'm never gonna do.
Oh no, absolutely not.
It's not. It's
like
shopping
sprinkles and jimmies too. There's that whole debate.
Yeah, but that's a Massachusetts thing. I forgot about sprinkles and jimmies.
Sprinkles.
Yeah, so when the stuff you put on the ice cream, those are sprinkles. There are some people call them jimmies. They're like, you want some jimmies on your ice cream? I was like, no. Do I look like a guy who likes jimmies? I'm like, those are not jimmies. Those are sprinkles. They're like, they're jimmies. I'm like, you people from Boston are strange.
So another question I want to ask you is LFA. So I love Jeremy. How did that come about? Like, how did you meet Jeremy?
I went on his show in late like 2020 or so. Or early 2021. It was right after he got banned everywhere, which was in COVID. You couldn't say anything about vaccines. You couldn't say anything about the election. You couldn't say anything about anything. And he got banned. And I got a text from him, or it might have been from somebody who knew him, and said, Jeremy Harrell wants you on. I had no idea. I didn't know. I was in my own world. I said, sure. I said yes to going on anybody's thing. All right, I'll go on his show. At that point, I was like, I'll go on anyone's show. Whatever. It'll be fun. And so I went on his show then. And then in 2022, because we were very deeply involved in the gubernatorial race, he wanted to have me back on to talk about the governor's race. And I went on, and it was a banger of a segment, high energy. I was very caffeinated at the time. And then he messages me, like texts me right afterwards. It was like, I have something I want to talk about with you. Like, an opportunity maybe if you want. We spoke on the phone, and he was like, I want to bring you into this project. We're building this thing called LFA TV. It's a streaming network. And I was like, dude, I love the vision. Let's go. And so Kevin Smith and I, we were running Loud Majority together. First started doing we used to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday to kind of keep our followers locally involved and aware of what's going on and where to vote, where to go, what school board needs this and that. So then we just did, 5 days a week on Jeremy's network. When Brendan and I moved out of New York, I kept the 10 o'clock slot. Kevin was jumped into 1, and he's still working on LFA. I'm still working there. So, but it's been great. It's been great to have. The best part about doing what we do with LFA is never once, not ever, has anybody, including Jeremy, told me what I should or should not say. Completely free creative license. Now, he will, and I appreciate this, will give advice. Hey, the audience likes when you do this. It's his audience. He built that audience, right? But never was it like, you can't talk about that. Which always, for me, the minute that happens, I'm out. Because I'm not going to play this game of what I can and can't say. But it's been great. It's been great to have the platform. We've met a bunch of the folks who are in our chat in real life, and the many faces and many names that are in the chat. But it has been a lot of fun, and we're just enjoying growing it into something really special. We're ready for the midterms and what this is going to bring about.
It's like, what do you think about Mom Donnie now? And like, what's Kevin doing over there to help that?
Well, there's not much you can really do at this point. I mean, he's on Long Island. Kevin is. Mom Donnie's the mayor of New York City. And, he's getting ready to put a burqa on the Statue of Liberty, I guess. And the warmth of collectivism, where you have his rent advocate coming out there saying, well, we're going to reevaluate the relationship that we have with private property. And if it falls short of expectations or blah, blah, we're going to just take it. And I'm like, okay. People want to know why I left. I mean, there it is. And it's not just limited to Mom Donnie. You see, in order to pay for a free bus or a free subway ride or free childcare, which I'm sure once he started saying that, you had a bunch of bug-eyed Somalis in Minnesota going, he say childcare? They're going to leer quick. They feared about that. I bet Bill had over New York City. But because the city's running a deficit now, right? So like, to put this in perspective, let's say you go into 7-Eleven, CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, wherever, and you have $10 in your pocket, and you want to walk out of there with $15 worth of stuff. You can't unless you get more money, right? So you have to find a way to get more money so you could pay for your $15 worth of stuff. If you go around the supermarket or this place, convenience store, and you say, you pay me your fair share so I can afford my things, and people give you that money, that's all good and great. But the problem is, Mom Donnie's going to have to do that. He's got $10 and he needs 15. So he's got to raise more money in order to make the buses free. And so I always ask this to these socialists and these folks who are like, free, it's great. And I was like, how? How is it free? Well, the government pays for it.
Well, speaking of socialism, what's your view on us completely extracting Maduro?
Oh, well, I'm loving that. First of all, he was wearing Hello Kitty pajamas. He was in the fetal position. They call him El Gato Gordo. That means the fat cat. He's a fat cat. I love it. But this is the problem with the socialism, right? These people hear free, 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 free. They hear the government's going to pay for it. And then when you ask them, okay, how does the government get the money to pay for these things? They go, taxes. Okay. They don't have enough money to pay for the stuff now. Remember, he has $10, he needs 15. Okay. So he needs more money. The analogy I used in the CVS, give me something, give me something, give me. Everybody's going to have to give a little bit more so that Mom Donnie can afford his pet projects. And what they don't understand is that's not just going to be the city. The entire state is going to have to raise taxes on businesses, on regular people, forget about the top 1%. I'll tell you what the top 1% is going to do. They're going to leave. If someone said to me, If you want to live here, I'm taking more of your money without, because you're successful. I'm going to go, I don't want to live here anymore.
Well,
That's why we left New York. Brendan was like, what do you think about Tennessee? I
so
said, no state income tax.
what's tough though is we want people to be able to fight to change these states. Like, look at California. Like,
Right.
somebody needs to try to, we need to have a revolution in California. So do you advise like everyone to always leave the states, or like, what do you think? Because I also left the Northeast, so I get it.
In a place like New York, in a place like California, I would say get out.
Mhm.
Because the Democrats have been they're so entrenched that everything's corrupt. And, I'm not saying your vote doesn't matter. If you live in a place, New York City, Long Island, wherever, and you have a governor's race coming up, it's coming up in 26. Bruce Blakeman's the guy. Vote and get as many people to the polls as possible. The only way to win is to score one more point than your opponent. Put as many points on the board as possible. Vote and do all that. But understand that if things don't go your way, you could punch a brick wall a billion times. Eventually, you're going to be the one hurt, and the wall's going to be fine. And uh, it's going to take more than just people like us staying and fighting.
Mhm.
It's going to take people's minds to change in a place like that. Now, is Mamdani going to be the catalyst when the buses aren't free? Or if they are free, how do you tell a passenger they're not allowed on the bus if it's free, right? Those are going to be rolling homeless shelters. That's what it's going to be. If I was a homeless guy and I heard that the buses was free, okay, so there's no barrier to entry. I'm sitting on that bus all day long going, I don't care where, sleeping or drinking or doing drugs or whatever on that bus, right? Um, and that goes for all these free programs. People are going to take advantage of it.
Well, thankfully, we're at least cracking down on the illegal crime. And I think New York could be next for where Trump sends the National
I
Guard,
hope so.
honestly, because we need it. And I know people are wanting to protest that, but
Sure.
what do you think about what's going on right now in Minneapolis?
Minneapolis has given us several gems since 2020, right? The Summer of Love, St. George's ascension to the heavens, right? Because he never did a bad thing in his life. Don't worry about the fact that he held the pregnant woman,
Yep,
a
under
gun
belly.
to her belly. He never did that. He's St. George. He never did that.
Mm.
Um, don't worry about the fact. You want to know a bizarre stat? Remember the memes during COVID?
Yes.
Every death was a COVID death, right?
Yeah.
Man eaten by shark dies of coronavirus type of deal. George Floyd had COVID. He tested positive for COVID. He's the only person, to my knowledge, who died present with the virus, was not listed a COVID death.
Wow.
Hey, right?
Imagine that.
Isn't that interesting? Because in any other scenario, if I went on on the train tracks on Long Island and I licked the third rail, but I also had COVID, my cause of death would be COVID, not licking the third rail. For those of you who don't know what the third rail is on these train tracks, it's a strip of metal that is charged with electricity that these electric trains make contact with, and that powers the train. If you lick that, you die. Okay. There have been people who've actually peed on it and died. It arcs up the very nasty.
Well, George Floyd wasn't Somali, so maybe that's why he didn't
Right.
die of COVID.
But he had the virus and was not listed as a COVID death. Well, a COVID death wouldn't have put people in the streets, right? But police brutality puts people in the streets. Minneapolis, here's another stat. 100% of illegal aliens that come into this country are already criminals. Doesn't matter if they do anything else once they're here, because you're breaking the law when you come into the country illegally. Now, a visa overstay, a little different. Civil violation in some cases. By the way, if you illegally enter the country more than once, it's felony. So, and Don Lemon said, oh, it's a crime, but it's not illegal. How does that work? And that's another one. How did he know that the church that was stormed by these anti-ICE protesters, they're not protesters, they're domestic terrorists. How do you know that was going to happen there? Don Lemon doesn't go to church. Don Lemon doesn't live in Minnesota. Don Lemon did not randomly come to the conclusion that that church was going to be a good place to be that day. Someone tipped him off. He's conspiring with them to do these things. So Minneapolis has been, unfortunately, the gift that is continued to give people like me.
Jelly of the Month Club?
Right. It's like, people who comment on politics. You can offer opinions there, but it's also an awful thing. Someone is dead. She shouldn't be dead. Not that the ICE agent did something wrong, but that she should not have been in that position, and she thought she was doing something right. And my point on all that is you have these radical leftists who and the elected officials, the organizers of these groups. Let me tell you something. When we did these protests on Long Island, if I organized a protest and I didn't have to work, I was there at the front, in the middle of it, mainly to be there, but also I am making sure that none of my people do anything wrong. That none of my people are out there assaulting cops. That none of our friends are out there getting into fights. I mean, we had a massive gathering at a train station parking lot once, and this one guy used to always show up. He had a mask on, and he would just stand there with a sign that said Black Lives Matter. And that's all he would do is stand there with a sign. It was impressive. He never said a word. And one day there were just people like taunting him, heckling him, and I was like, what are you doing? It's not about him. We're trying to like do a food drive here for veterans or something, or Thanksgiving or whatever it was at the time. Get away from him. He wants you to say something stupid so he can record you, and we lose this. These anti-ICE people, the ones who are organizing these protests, are never out on the streets, okay? They want the pawns on the chessboard to go down. They want their protesters to be killed. This is a death cult, and the Attorney General of Minnesota actually said that to Don Lemon. He said it was beautiful that Renee Good lost her life. Beautiful. It's not beautiful. She should be alive, but they convinced her she's doing something righteous, that protesting, and what she did wasn't protesting. What she did was violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 111, I think, which is
look at that.
Obstruction of a federal officer. The other woman who they ripped out of they broke the window and they ripped her out of the car. I'm just going to a doctor's appointment. Really? I've never seen somebody park their car perpendicular on a road in front of an ICE vehicle who's going to a doctor's appointment. 18 U.S. Code Section 231, civil disorder. You can't do these things. These are unlawful activities that the left has convinced their pawns are righteous activities. Go break the law on our behalf, and if you lose your life, you lose your life, and we'll make you into some sort of martyr. It ain't worth it. These people need to understand the dangers that they're putting themselves in, and they don't. And the people holding the puppet strings are always very excited when one of their own gets hurt, because then they can fire up the outrage machine, fire up the fundraise machine, shift focus away from whatever it is that makes them look bad. In this case, it was the Somali fraud. You had this massive story, the autism stuff, the Feeding the Future network that wasn't feeding anybody. You got McDonald's, 10 billion meals served, feeding our future, 0 meals served. Nick Shirley's big expose, that's all on the back burner now because people think ICE is the Gestapo and a woman lost her life because she was indoctrinated.
Wait, let's talk about the fact that there was someone who actually told Laura Ingraham in person. One of the protesters said, I am paid to be here. She admitted to it. And what I find very interesting is while this all happened, the story resurged about the 2 state reps from Minnesota who were murdered cold blood, I think, over this last summer.
Yeah,
and
Bolter was the assassin.
Yeah, and he worked for Tim Walz up until 2023.
Yep.
So it's like, are people just ignoring the facts? What's going on?
Yeah.
Like
Well, people are ignoring the facts. And the great Dan Bongino used to say this, they're vaccinated against facts. Okay? They've gotten a vaccine. They take the jab. Now they cannot process factual information anymore. They can only process what is acceptable in their worldview. Anything else is bigoted. Anything else is bigoted. For example, when I say that 100% of illegal aliens who enter the country illegally are criminals, they say that's racist. It's not racist. It's the legal truth. There's a law that they broke when they did what they did. You actually can't break that argument. Like, I listen to Andrew Wilkow. I think he's a phenomenal radio host. He always says on his show, the arguments on this show cannot be broke. That is one of those arguments you can't break. Okay, let's again bring it down to the personal level. You have a house. Some person you don't know kicks in your door and starts stealing things out of your house. That is illegal, immediately illegal. Well, these illegal aliens are just here for a better life. No problem. Let's keep that rule in place, because I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. And you can come if you would like after we're done recording. We're going to go rob a bank.
unreal.
We're going to do it. We're going to go rob a bank, and we're going to go rob a bank for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well,
and when we get arrested, we're going to say, I was just doing it to have a better life because apparently that's okay, right? Or we could pretend we don't speak English and say that in Spanish. I don't know, but this is. You mentioned are they blind to the? They know what the facts are, but they are, and I think some of these people know they're wrong, but they're so team sports, right? We got to
Pride. Yeah. They don't want to
That's the
fault.
problem.
By the way, Brennan, Sean's amazing wife, we both love bunnies, and so here's with the bunny. Let's throw nice now. It's great. It's leather paws.
It's a beautiful bunny. So call it a rabbit. I got along, by the way, let me tell you something. I got along very well with Bugs Bunny. You may have heard of him. What's up, Doc? He called me, what's up, Don? Bugs Bunny. Tremendous guy. And Elmer Fudd was trying to hunt the rabbit season. We said not going to let it happen. That was a good throw. You want to play quarterback for the Jets?
Believe it
I don't want to leave it our career.
Believe it or not, so I am Jets over Giants, but I am a lifelong Cleveland Browns fan. So
that's just as bad. That's just
it's been rough.
That's
been rough.
That's as bad. All right.
So
we get that. That's bad.
But no, I'm really glad that you have a lot of insight. And actually, one of my other favorite videos of yours was about how there were no hurricanes.
Oh my goodness, yes. Ever since we changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, we had no hurricanes that came into our country. None of them, because I struck a deal with Mother Nature. You may have heard of her too. She's a wonderful person. And she said, sir, we're going to send about 6 or 7. We had to do it. 6, 7. They say to me, sir, how many terms are you running for? I say 6, 7. But I said, you're not sending any hurricanes into our country because we're going to hit you with tariffs. We love tariffs. Tariffs are great. We're going to hit you with tariffs. She said, we don't want to do that. And they said, it's an El Nino year. It's a La Nina. We deported El Nino and La Nina too. They're out. Very nasty people. But I'm a weather nerd.
Yeah.
So when there was day 1 of hurricane season, I remember saying to a few friends of mine, if there are no hurricanes in the Gulf after he changed this to Gulf of America, I'm going to have so much fun. And then December 1st rolled around, and that's the official end of hurricane season. And I started getting messages from those same friends going, you got to do this video. And I'm going, all right, I don't know how many people are going to like it because it's like weathery. I'll tell you something. Jim Cantori, the Weather Channel guy?
Yeah.
Who like freaks out when there's lightning in a snowstorm. He was one of my personal favorite people when I was a child growing up watching Legend. He liked it, and I almost lost my mind for like 2 days. I was like, Jim Cantori thinks my thing is funny. This is amazing, And so actually, that was Eric Trump enjoyed that one. You said you
the best one. No, the best one of those things. One of the best, other than
I had fun with that.
McDonald's.
I had fun with that one.
But I just
actually short story about McDonald's. When I did one of my McDonald's order, I ordered a Dr. Pepper instead of a Diet Coke. And everyone was mad at me. Trump likes Diet Coke. But the line was, we trust Dr. Pepper more than Dr. Fauci. You know what happened after that? Senator John Kennedy repeated that line on television.
Wow.
Joke thief.
Kennedy.
But he's funny.
He is pretty funny though. Who should we be watching for the midterms? Like, who should we be supporting, like, in your opinion?
But in terms of people who are running?
Yes, or re-election.
I love a good primary. Kentucky 4, Ed Galrain. Got to get rid of Thomas Massey. He's a pain in the butt. There are some things that Massey says that I definitely agree with. And I know that he's a spending hawk and wants to stop the wasteful spending, or so he says, which is great. The way he's going about it isn't. And he's pandering to a crowd of people online who are obsessed with the teeny tiny country in the Middle East. But they say they're America first, but every other word out of their mouth is Israel. And I'm like, yeah, they're not a perfect country. I get it. And you can criticize them all you want. It's more than that, though. Obviously, it goes deeper than just Israel. But I'm interested there. Georgia 14. That's going to be an interesting race. The special election for Marjorie's district. That's going to be an interesting race. In Tennessee, we have a gubernatorial election in this year, 26. Looking overwhelmingly likely that it's going to be Marsha Blackburn, so that'll be good. But I think we have to look at these swing districts and pour a lot of time, a lot of energy into these swing districts. And the money that gets spent on some of these mailers, and you have these high-powered DC consultants. I worked with a few of these people once. They don't know anything. And I say that like it's not hyperbole. They don't know anything. We had a situation on Long Island where there was this guy, highly paid consultant on a campaign that we were also working on. And we clashed with him a bunch of times. Well, this is not polling well. I said, I want you to take your polls and I want you to shove them so far up your rear end that you giggle like a schoolgirl. Okay. Like, I know you just showed up here. You were working in Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago. I know these people better than you do. I don't care how much you're getting paid. I don't care how long you've been doing it. I've been doing it here longer than you. These people want to hear about education. Sure enough, once the candidate started talking about education, she gained a lot of traction. She didn't win the primary, but she gained a lot of traction with the education thing. Oh, maybe she's not so bad. Maybe she's, I said, what do you, these high-powered consultants, they want to just throw money, mailers, phone calls. You got to get out there and knock on doors, right? There's a guy in West Virginia, a state senator, current state senator, last year in the 2024 cycle, he, in the primary, raised $54,000. That's all his campaign had. Wow. $54,000. His Republican establishment incumbent opponent dropped over $1 million on the race. It was this guy and 2 volunteers, and he won by, I think, between 20 and 30 points.
Do you want to look up who this is?
Chris Rose.
Chris Rose? Okay.
Chris Rose of West Virginia. He's a state senator, 3rd-generation coal miner. The dude wore out his pairs of shoes. His volunteers and him went house to house, knocked on doors, walked inside people's homes. They invited him in. He walked out of the coal mine, walked into politics, and demolished his primary opponent so bad that they saw all the money that they dumped into the race. His would-be Democrat opponent, the day after he won that primary, called him and conceded and said, we want no part of this. Now he's a state senator in West Virginia. He's getting a ton of stuff done. We've talked to local candidates, and I always tell them, you got to just do the Chris Rose method. They don't know who that is. Knock. Get out and talk to people. You want to hit mailers? You want to do that as supplemental stuff? No problem. But you got to talk to people. You got to get to these people's homes. You don't have to go in them. But you know how many times Chris told me, he said, when I spoke to people, that he was the first person that they'd seen come to his house and ask for a vote in decades. And that's why he got their vote, because he met them where they were. What are your concerns? Here's what I'm concerned about. What am I missing? Had the conversation and actually represents them. And that's why he won. He's got a bright future, this guy.
I think that's really what MAGA in general is pushing for. We're pushing for more involvement, more, really in-person movement. And I think that's the next phase. But I'm going to take a quick pause because I want to highlight a sponsor. So my friend Jared from New Jersey, he's actually one of the first people that I met during all of this. You getting it? Okay. He's one of the first people I met. He's a patriot. He follows all of us. He designed an app. So it's actually an AI app that can help you design a children's book for your kids. So you can put their name in, what they look like, choose your adventure, art style. Total beast with AI. It's vibe coded. The entire app was made by himself, and it's called MyTinyTale. So check it out, parents, anybody out there who wants to make something for their kids. And here we go. The first one is free. So if you want to make one today, go to MyTinyTale.ai and make one for your kid.
Munchies. I know who grabbed the munchies. It was Chris Christie. Case closed.
Case of donuts?
Case of donuts. I was on a debate stage with him one time, and somebody didn't like what he was saying, so they threw a tomato at him, and it's still stuck in his orbit right now. The tomato's going around and around. It's really a disgrace. Poor Vivek. Vivek was on the debate stage, and Chris Christie was on. He had to hold the podium, or else he was going to get sucked into that black hole. He's a terrible person.
Poor Vivek. He'd weigh, if they were on a seesaw,
I got along well with Galileo. You know Galileo? He found a lot of planets. He looked into the telescope. He said, sir, we have a gas giant, sir. I said, that's not a gas giant. That's Chris Christie. Well, it is a gas giant. Between Chris Christie, Jiggly Belly Pritzker, That's what the JB stands for. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Stacey Abrams. We call her the Beast of the Southeast. You have a whole solar system of gas giants. These are nasty people. Nasty people.
So what would your advice be if somebody saw Shawn Farash and they were inspired by your work, a kid, somebody that wanted to start doing this or wanted to do comic, like what would you tell them?
Take your phone and turn it and face you and record something and post it. Just, I mean, unless you really think it's terrible, but it gets stuck. Like, don't be insensitive. Don't be stupid on the recording. But take your phone, do a front-facing camera, let it, and just go and post it. And no one's gonna see your first video anyway, so it doesn't matter if it sucks. Like if you don't have a platform, you don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
Just do it. That's it. Like just do it. Because when I worked in a paint store, and I thought it was a good idea for people to support Trump and protest COVID at the same time in the late stages of summer, early stages of fall in 2020. I didn't have a platform. I didn't have a TikTok channel. I did Trump. I did it like with my contractors, though, who were buying paint for me because they thought it was funny and it helped me sell. That's how I learned how to do it. I did it when I was selling DirecTV. I had people who they were like, "Oh, am I going to be able to keep Fox News?" And I would look at them, in the sales pitch.
Mhm.
I would never take that away from you. We're not going to let it happen. And they were like, "Oh, this is great. This is great." So, um, you don't have to have a platform. You don't need exposure right off the bat. It's the best time to perfect your craft is when nobody's watching. This way, when people start watching, you're like, well, about who's this guy? Who's this one? So my whole thing is just do it, and you might not be a viral sensation or you may not rack up millions upon millions of views, but just adding your voice to the conversation is important. It's better than not talking.
Well, and on the point of not talking, do you really believe that all these Twitter pundits that are probably getting paid, ex-pundits, I should say, to say that Trump's movement is dead? Like, what do you have to say to those people?
I say, who are you? That's what I say. One of them doesn't even go by his real name, so which is very interesting. These people are what they are is so I grew up listening to the radio, sports radio, but also music radio in the 90s. 92.3 K-Rock in New York was like the channel. And that's where Howard Stern was broadcasting from. He was what everybody would refer to as a shock jock. Now we call these people engagement farmers or rage baiters. It's the exact same thing. Howard Stern, and don't get me wrong, he is a gifted man when it comes to radio and entertainment. But his big appeal in the beginning was you never knew what he was going to say next. Shock jock. You were shocked by what he was saying because he got into very kind of sexual conversations and he just, okay. It was diarrhea of the mouth. He got into a lot of trouble with the FCC, but people tuned in because they wanted to hear what wild thing was Howard going to say. And so when you look at X, when you look at Instagram, when you look at TikTok, when you look at YouTube, any social media, you have a bunch of shock jocks who they started off by saying one thing that was a little outrageous, and they realized, okay, that is how I get engagement. I don't get engagement by telling the truth.
Yep.
I get engagement by making something up that sounds scary, dangling the carrot in front of the horse and saying, well, stick with me. We'll get to the bottom of this. And then as it gets, for example, in June, we had World War III, right? With the Iran strikes. And I said, this is not going to be, you don't know it's not going to be World War II. I said, you don't know it is. Yes, I do. Are you going to say you're wrong? Well, I'm not going to be wrong. What happened? My lawn chair fell over. I guess that's the extent of World War III, right? Iran didn't bomb anything. They sent a fake retaliatory strike that we were warned about. But that was it. This is World War. Then it's on to the next sensationalist item. Now you have all of these just insane theories about Charlie Kirk down to now he's traveling through time, which I'm sitting there going, and I was waiting for that crowd to start to get really outlandish. What they're really good at is getting a sheet of information, picking the pieces of that information. So if I say, Brennan, I think Brennan robbed the bank. And they go, why? Well, because Brennan was at the bank yesterday and the bank was robbed yesterday. And,
Yep.
and she posted a selfie in her car in brand new glasses, nice, like the Somalis wear at the daycare. So clearly she robbed the bank and then went and bought glasses with it. And that's why, but you have on this list of information that the bank robber was a male on the camera and Brennan's clearly not a dude. So, but these people will omit certain things. They'll harp on other things. They'll paint a picture. They'll construct a narrative. They will not reach their conclusion based off of evidence. And they have been able for a long time to kind of do that in a way that was sort of compelling, where well, I'm just asking questions. Wouldn't you find it weird if this, that, and the other? But now we're dabbling in time travel. And there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, no. And I said, see, because I knew it was you, because it has to get to that point, because this is what they've got to do. They don't care about the truth. They care about the clicks.
This psychological warfare. It is psychological warfare.
In 2024, this happened in December. Remember the drones over New Jersey? Yeah. They were military tests. They were always military tests. I found a press release of companies and the military joint release saying, we're going to be testing drones over the exact area that people were saying they were going to see it 8 months before it happened. You had people out there saying that there was a nuke missing in the United States and that the drones were trying to find them. There was an Iranian mothership. And I'm like, but you can never return back to being normal after that, because then people are going to be like, oh, this isn't exciting. So those people who are saying the MAGA movement is dead are online shock jocks. They understand that posting controversial things or even things that aren't true is going to be rewarded with engagement, even if it's a bunch of people calling them, names and saying that's not true. It's still engagement. The way these algorithms work is no matter, they're not reading the comments on your post. They just see that you're getting comments on your posts. So it gets served to more people. To me, what I say to them is, how do you know the MAGA movement is dead when you were never a part of it to begin with? You pretended, but you were never a part of it to begin with. And so you don't really have a place or the authority to declare such a thing. You can have an opinion, but opinions are like buttholes. They all stink and everybody has one.
Well, also on authority, what is your take on the current Greenland conversation? And how quickly do you think this is going to happen?
Okay. So I think what Trump is doing with Greenland, first of all, he's been interested in Greenland since his first term. Late in his first term, he was talking about acquiring Greenland. And then COVID happened, and then it put a lot of stuff on the back burner. This approach that he's taking now, just think about this, right? So Trump wants Greenland. He's willing to buy Greenland. Europe does not want him to buy Greenland. Denmark does not want him to buy Greenland. So Trump said, all right, we're tariffing you until you cave on Greenland. So how funny would it be if they hold out long enough where like a bunch of that tariff revenue can be used to purchase Greenland? So basically, Europe is essentially going to pay for Greenland. Now, that's not exactly how it works, but I got a lot of Europeans mad at me for saying that.
Well, they can kick rocks because guess what? Denmark didn't even make their GDP spending agreement.
Exactly.
They didn't make their 2%.
So a lot of Europeans got upset with me for going down that. They were like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not how tariffs work. Tariffs cause inflation. And I was like, really? Because we've had tariffs for 9 months and prices have started to cool, and started to come back down a bit and wages are up. But I love the Greenland thing. First of all, from an actual national security perspective, it makes total sense for this to be a United States territory or under the jurisdiction of the United States. We don't have much of a presence in the Arctic Circle. Russia and China are in there and they have influence there. So, I'm all about it, and I'm all about the use of tariffs to get there. And we're going to rename it the Island of McDonald's because from outer space, it looks like a big McNugget. And it's a beautiful place. We love Greenland. And there's a lot of polar bears and beautiful people. We're going to use it as also a place to exile the idiots, right? We could send all the bug people there. The bug people. The Somalis, they look like bugs, right?
Well, Jason Miller yesterday posted some maps around Greenland, and it really showed the trade routes that would be made more accessible if we actually took the land. So to me, it makes more sense. People want more jobs coming back to the U.S. we have to fix something about production, right? So maybe Trump has a bigger plan, as he usually does.
Well,
Part of the deal.
so you say jobs, right? That's great. So you have Greenland now is now our territory, let's say, hypothetically, it
Mhm.
happens. Um, and we want to mine there. There's currently no U.S. mining operations on that island, right? On Greenland. So here comes some jobs. You have a company now that's going to invest some time over in Greenland. It's got to employ people. And, now the Greenlanders will be Americans. Um, and they can work, and it would increase their standard of living. They're very poor in Greenland. So,
Yeah, there's a fake news story going around that Elon, Bill Gates, and a bunch of others are making some like, Independence Island, or I forget what it's called, but I know that they're looking into rare earth minerals over there for AI, but I don't think that Freedom Island is true. I think that's a whole narrative they're pushing to try to counter Trump.
yeah, I think it's just it's
It's
one of those rumors that just is out there. Look, rare earths are important. For AI, for phones, for computers, chips, and all that. And China has you know, a very strong advantage in that arena. The United States doesn't have enough access to places that have rare earths. That's why the conversation with Ukraine has been about rare earth
100%.
minerals. That's why the conversation about Greenland has been about rare earth minerals. And so it makes sense that he wants it. How is this America first? Well, we just explained it. It's going to keep China and Russia at bay, and it's going to, impact the amount of influence and control over the market when it comes to rare earths that China has. Venezuela, same thing. Venezuela was sending oil over to Iran. Iran using that oil and the money and all that stuff to fund terrorism. You've toppled the regime in Venezuela, and if they play ball our way and stop funding the bad guys, it hurts the bad guys. It also allows oil when we upgrade the infrastructure in Venezuela, clean crude oil to be drilled and refined in our hemisphere and have to worry about it coming from somewhere else. The Saudis, who have a lot of influence over the United States because of oil, will have less influence. We'll be more independent as a result.
Well, it's amazing is over the weekend I just found out we found billions of oil, well, billions of gallons of oil, I should say, in Texas. But did you also know that we used to have the largest silver reserve in the United States? And guess who has one of the biggest silver repositories? Venezuela.
Oh, really?
So, silver is used to make phones, cars,
Yeah.
missiles, you name it. So I do think eventually that is going to come into play. But yes, rare earth minerals, most people don't realize it's also used in many things that you're probably using every day. So I think there is a multifaceted playing field that we're on, and I'm personally behind Trump with Greenland. So
100%.
I'm excited about this. I say, hey, let's change the world.
Oh,
So
100%. I want Greenland. And now I find myself wanting Greenland because the left is going to throw fits, and it's just going to be fun to. By the way, you want to drive them crazy? Use the term meltdown to describe their erratic behavior. They specifically hate that word.
really,
Oh yeah. Every time I use the term meltdown, they come back at me and yell, through Twitter, X, and they're like, "We're not melting down, but at least but even if we were, like, we're not in love with an orange buffoon, child predator, pedo protector." Da. I'm like, that's a meltdown,
see,
guy.
pedo. The word pedo is the new racist. That's how they throw it around. It's like any way they want to describe
Which
you.
I'm going to tell you about, because what you're doing is you're going to, just like you did with racism, right? So, like, if someone calls me racist, I was like, yeah, okay. So I've never been called that before,
Mhm.
you know? But there is like actual racism. It's not systemic, but there are racist people. And that's wrong, right? Um, I nobody, boy who cried wolf, nobody knows now
Mhm.
where the real racism is because of BLM, because of Jussie Smollett, because of Bubba Wallace, because of CNN and the mainstream media. Everything is racist. So now, like, it's worse now. And I think being a pedophile is worse than being a racist, 1,000%. Now you're throwing the word pedo at everybody that you disagree with, just like you did it with Nazi and racist and all this. Now we're not going to know who the real pedos are.
So I guess to close then for a good topic to kind of wrap that up, all the people who are frustrated about the Epstein list, quote unquote, which I don't even believe that the narrative that they think exists is the actual truth. What do you think about the fact that, when Dan Bongino was in, Bongino and Patel, they both talked about how, listen, these are the facts, this is what we saw. How do we influence the narrative here to educate people on what is actually the truth and debunk some of this mysticism that's going around, essentially.
Well, yeah, the problem again with the people who don't want to hear something that they don't agree with, right? One of the things I say all the time on my show is I may not always tell you what you want to hear, but I'm always going to tell you what I think is the truth and why I believe is the truth. Just the other day we were having a conversation about the Insurrection Act and whether or not the criteria was met. And there were some sticking points, a couple of cases in 1863 that defined an insurrection as an armed rebellion. Are they armed in Minneapolis? So we have these conversations, and people understand that. And my mind can change. My mind has changed on the filibuster. I used to say, don't nuke the filibuster. Now I'm saying we probably got to get rid of it. It's the only way to move anything through. Um, but when you say something to somebody and their mind is already made up and you say something they disagree with, they go crazy. The Epstein, for example, I have no idea how he died. I'm not going to pretend to know how he died. Okay. I, for a long time, believed he did not kill himself. I still think it's possible that he did not kill himself. I don't think that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are sellouts for saying that they believe it's a suicide because they looked at the evidence that I haven't seen. And what they had is all they're allowed to talk about. They cannot theorize or speculate publicly in those positions. You're not allowed to do that. There are ethics protocols that forbid you from doing that. So you can't have Dan or Kash or both of them coming out on Fox and going, well, we got the files, but we think the file is BS and we think he killed him. You can't do that, So that's what some people need to understand. Some will never accept it because it's not what they want to hear. Their mind is made up. The other thing is like, what do you mean there's no client list? People think when you say there's no client list that you're saying there's no clients. There are clients. What Jeffrey Epstein didn't do, because criminals don't do this, is write, Dear Diary, this morning I molested a 6-year-old with Bill Clinton on the island in the Caribbean. Then Bill Gates came over and we did the same thing. Like,
Exactly.
you don't log your crimes on an Excel spreadsheet. And one of the other things, and I'm not saying I like redactions, because I don't, but one of the other things we have to be careful about is some people used Jeffrey Epstein for his money and had no idea what he was doing. I believe that. Just like if you got to take your car in for work at a mechanic, right? Check engine lights on, and you needed a sensor, and he replaces the sensor, and you give him $500, and you drive out of there, and then a week later your mechanic gets busted because he was dealing meth. Does that make you a meth head? No. But this is what the problem is. If somebody is found in the Epstein files immediately without reading about who they are or what their involvement was, they're a pedophile. And you can't do that to innocent people. That will ruin lives. And so due diligence is necessary. The problem is we live in the, I need to microwave my steak. I don't want to grill it because it takes too long mentality, where if it doesn't happen right this second, it's not acceptable. You've got to do this is a serious thing. You've got to do your due diligence. I mean, look what happened to Zeldin, right? Where Jasmine Crockett found somebody named Jeffrey Epstein and said, Lee Zeldin took money from Jeffrey Epstein. Meanwhile, it was a doctor who lived on Long Island, and the donation was made after the bad Jeffrey Epstein was killed. So I wish people would just take their foot off the gas for a minute and just coast and look around and understand, look, not everything's perfect, and I don't love the way that the Epstein situation was handled, especially by Bondi. But you also can't, on the 100% flip side of that, just, all right, here's everything, and anybody who's in here, well, good luck clearing your name.
Exactly. But no, I really appreciate your real sense, and I think that's what makes your comic side great, your impersonations, is because you bring in facts, you bring in sensibility, and we need more of that. So how can people follow you and learn more from you while laughing?
Rumble.com/LFATV every morning, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And now we're doing a sports show. So Jeremy and I and a couple of others, we do the Rumble Rundown on Saturdays from 9 to 11 Eastern in the morning. And it's just fun. It's 4 guys. We're just talking sports, and it's getting really goofy sometimes. It gets real silly, and it's a good time. But that's where my show is. Any podcasting platform, you can search Ungoverned and hit subscribe. That's it, totally free. And then social media, the best place to find me is X, SHAWN_FARASH. If you're nice and fun, I interact with a lot of my followers on there. I don't just post and ghost. And if you're mean, I block you. So
Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the very beginning for me, but I would love it if you subscribe. So I'm on Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social, X, and Telegram. You can find me at The Real Toria Brooke, and then on X, Real Toria Brooke. Thank you so much.